All right, hey everybody, TG here. Let's get this lowered down just a little bit. Good to see everybody this morning. And I think this is going to be our last one going into the new year. So we are wrapping up 2021. We're going to be jumping into 2022. So yeah, hope everybody's ready for it. We think our New Year's Eve plans got canceled because of Omicron. So thanks for that whole situation still happening. Hopefully you guys are dealing with it. I don't know, throwing a party, house party, staying home again. I don't know, whatever is working out for you. But yeah, it's still kind of an issue out there, as we all know. Anyway, if you guys want to learn more information about me, we can do profitpilot.com, and then you can check out the services here and scroll down between the alert service, the classes, the Moxie indicator, anything else that you guys want. It's all over here. So well, let's dive into the markets and see what we're up to. Yeah, brighter side, good to see you guys. Gary and Duro, we'll get to all those things too. So coming in through here, kind of like what last week we were talking about the double bottom. And honestly, I was not sure that this was going to hold. And I think a lot of people, a lot of other traders out there had kind of the same idea, that they were concerned that this was going to be here and we were going to go down like that. A lot of the videos and reports that I was reading and that I like to catch up on, a lot of people are like, yeah, that was a little unexpected. So that was probably, I think, why this was such a strong move, is because probably a lot of shorts got squeezed. I mean, the fact that it went just straight up, and even last week when I was doing the video, I was telling you, I was like, I'm still looking for price to hold the 15-minute 50 or anything, like test it, something. And it really didn't. It just got close a couple times here and then just went straight up. And then right in through here is where it's finally coming into and testing the 15-minute 50. Now, if we look at, let me just show you the weekly, because that kind of helps put this into perspective a little bit. It basically bounced off of the weekly 21 right there. So it did a double bottom off of that. Okay, so we're holding that level. And then if we come over here, back to this area, and if we look at the other recent move that was very, very strong, we can see in through here that there was a little bit of sideways movement, and it did eventually test the hourly 50. This is something I talk about quite a bit, about testing moving averages, testing them for support, trying to make sure that they are in fact going to hold. So at this point, since we've had a pretty straight up move like this, I'm not expecting the 15-minute 50 to hold. I would expect price to chop through it, go below it, something to that extent. So what I'm doing is I'm switching over to the hourly time frame, and really the question is it going to hold the hourly 21, or is it eventually going to need the hourly 50? And maybe it's going to need both, as we've kind of seen over here. But the bigger picture is that the 8 has stayed over the 21 the entire time. I would generally expect that to be the same thing here if this is going to continue to be bullish. The other thing is, if we look at the daily chart, I talk about the daily 8 EMA quite a bit, and you can see here that there is a gap between price and the 8 EMA. So off the 8 back to the 8, it's a lot of times what I say, and we look at this kind of here, we had a gap between price and the 8 EMA. At some point, it did need to come back down to the 8 EMA. Going last week, I was actually kind of concerned about the Moxie indicator on the daily chart getting below 0, and actually this being an inverse trampoline move, which was correct. So didn't get into that one, which was good, because then the market pulled back again. And then as it turns out, we are now back up here. The Moxie indicator is firing at the same time that price is getting back above the 50, as opposed to, and so this is, if you guys are asking like, okay, well, what's the comparison? The comparison is this. This is what we knew that the Moxie indicator was telling us, like, hey, this is not the greatest run, because price was very far over the daily 50. It cleared the daily 50, but notice how late the Moxie indicator fired. So this is what I call the tail wagging the dog. For those of you who've taken my classes and part of the master, you guys know I talk about this a lot. So that was late. This is on time. This is good. So, I was a little surprised by the strength of the move coming off of that double bottom, and that it held. But you know what? The everything is kind of lining up. We've got our double bottom here, and we've got our positive divergence here, and the Moxie indicator looks pretty good. So, we'll change our tune and say, all right, let's get back onto the horse with this thing. If we look at the Nasdaq, it was a weaker one. It still technically is, because it is not making new highs yet. And I was also concerned about how far down its Moxie indicator was on the daily chart as well. But that being said, that looks like it's going to be clearing probably next week. And you can see its double bottom held too with its positive divergence, and it shot up. Now you can see here, it's already falling below the 15-minute 50, which is what I was expecting and seeing on the S&P. Now it's at the hourly 21. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually falls below the 21 and maybe needs to go to the 50. Case in point, you look here at the last time it did something like that. You can see here it fell below the 21 and basically hit the hourly 50. So something like that. Basically just looking for a pullback into support. And if you look here on the daily chart, same kind of deal. There's a gap between price and the 8 EMA. So just a little bit of a pullback, something to that extent. And then if we look at the IWM, not I don't know, not I don't know really much what to say about this thing. We did get some divergence here. We had price down, Moxie indicator up, but what I was looking for is the 50, 200, 50 maneuver. So I'm still looking for that. I'm going to see what happens here. I'm cautious about this because it is underneath the daily 50, and the Moxie indicator is pretty far below zero. So the IWM still really has some problems. I don't know what this thing is going to do as far as strength. We have been seeing a risk off situation happen out there in the market. We're seeing kind of the bigger name stocks, blue chips, slower stocks that are not risky, that make money, that don't just have an idea, stocks that are actually legitimate and probably not going to disappear if inflation goes up, or if QE starts getting tightened, or QT, qualitative tightening, quantitative tightening, so all that kind of stuff. So just be careful with kind of the stocks you choose. I've been having to reevaluate which ones I go after. I tend to like the smaller cap, but those are just not happening. So I'll be stepping into the larger cap stocks, the ones that, tried and true, basically. And what I'd be looking for is, since price is here running into the underside of the hourly 200, I will be looking for price to come back down to probably the hourly 50 and seeing if that's going to hold and move back up or not. So still kind of cautious. It's underneath moving averages. It could be in a downtrend. It could keep chopping. So just not the greatest picture when it comes to the IWM. Imran, good to see you. All right, so let's jump over to, I got my list here. EMN. And if we look at this, let's look at the bigger picture first. And in through here on the weekly chart, it actually did a weekly trampoline move. It was very close, but it actually did it. So price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above zero is a trampoline move. Into that, you could even see on the stochastic, there was a double bottom despite a lower low. So I don't talk about the stochastic too much, but that's one way to look at it, is there's a version of your positive divergence. And then you can see here that the 8 was over the 21, and price is now back over most of those moving averages. So then if we take that, we go back to the daily and the hourly. Imran, you see that it had the 50, 200, 50 maneuver on the daily chart. Pretty cool, huh? And not only that, this was a trampoline move right there. So price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above zero is a trampoline move. And that is what helped really just throw this thing back up there. Now, what I am seeing in a very similar way to the market is that it had a huge move from that daily trampoline move, right? Well, what'd it do? Ultimately, just like I was talking about with the market, it needed to do a pullback into support, and that was a pullback basically into the hourly 50. Turned out to be also a trampoline move because the Moxie indicator was still above zero, and it popped back up. Now, this thing's been a little finicky. You can see it pop back up and then back down again, but that is still a trampoline move, and ultimately, it is holding the hourly 200 and the daily 21. So now we're back up here. Maybe this looks like it's doing better. It's had some fits and starts getting going, but it seems to be doing fine. I'd really be looking at the fact that this was a daily trampoline move, and that this was also a 50, 250 maneuver. And at this point, it looks like it should continue going, especially with that weekly chart. So yes, this looks like a pretty good, decent chart. May not be the most exciting, which is kind of what I was saying in the beginning, is that the stocks that seem to be working are going to be slower. We're just going to have to get used to, not 200% in 10 days or something like that. It's going to be a slower slower appreciation, I think, for 2022 as we deal with some headwinds. And also keep in mind that we're going to be having midterm elections, so it's going to be a reshuffling of the political deck. And I think the market's just going to safety. That's what it looks like. Now the other one is CCB. And let's see, kind of take a look at the bigger picture. Maybe it's just getting a little extended up there. Third ATR, third ATR, third ATR, third ATR, third ATR, third ATR, stuff like that. So that's about the only thing I can say on the higher time frames. And then on the lower time frames, I will point out a couple things here. Is I tend to look for pullbacks into moving averages. So, for example, here is where the Moxie price trigger fired. That is something that's scannable. So if you guys, number one, have Thinkorswim, or if you are on stockcharts.com, we have the Moxie indicator available on both those platforms. Now, right now, the scanner is only available on Thinkorswim. We will be building it for stock charts. So they're trying to get their stuff built out, but end of the year type stuff, we'll be hopefully getting that sooner than later in the new year. But you can scan for these Moxie price triggers, and that would have brought CCB to you right here and right here. That's how you would have found it for in a couple different situations. And you can also scan for trampoline moves. And a trampoline move is when price is below the 50, but the Moxie indicator is above 0. So CCB would have shown up on your list a few times back here, September, and that would have been on your list. So I like here where you can see that the Moxie indicator went positive, price tested the hourly 50, did a trampoline move just below the 50, continued to test the 50, 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 and then finally right there you get that Moxie price trigger with some negative divergence, and that was the end of that particular move. So this thing was amazing as far as with the Moxie indicator and following the rules. I mean, there's your entry, there's your exit. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And then this was a inverse trampoline move, so you know not to go in on that one. And then for whatever reason, price decided to jump up. Maybe it was because it bounced exactly off of the daily 50, so that's something to look at. Oh, and there's a Moxie price trigger on the daily chart. It was a really, really good situation as far as the Moxie indicator. Now, what I was talking about with the pullbacks to the 50, trampoline moves just below the 50, and with the market, look at this thing. It got overbought and it pulled back to the 50. Now, I would imagine at some point around here, it's probably going to hold and start to move back up. But this is a pretty constructive pullback for now that I'd be looking at and saying, yeah, that looks pretty interesting. So, Imran, good couple of finds. Thanks for the education, the teaching moment on this one, because that thing had a really good look right there. I mean, that looked really, really great. All right, so let's look at Nike, see if there's anything on that one. Been a little moving around, so I can say that was an inverse trampoline move and an inverse trampoline move. Those are the things that help keep you out of trades and keep you safe, because those are false longs. They can be shorts if you really want to short something, but most of the time they just mean don't go long right now. And if you look at the daily chart, what I'd be looking here is, well, there was a big gap between price and the daily 50, so it needed to come back down to it. I don't like to trade for earnings. I usually just step aside. It nosebled right into earnings and then jumped up. So that's why it's kind of risky with earnings, is because you just never know what's going to happen on earnings. That being said, it looks like this is really trying to recover. I would probably say that this is positive divergence on the daily chart. For all intents and purposes, there's your level right there. And then basically you got the 50, 250 maneuver trying to happen here, and you have the Moxie indicator firing over 0. So if going forward, if Nike can continue to hold the hourly 50 and get back up over here, then great. I'd want to see this. I want to see price hold the hourly 50. Stepping back, if we look at the higher time frames on the monthly and weekly, it's still in an uptrend. You can see here monthly 10, monthly 10, monthly 10, weekly 50, weekly 50, probably weekly 50, and it seems to be doing okay. It's if you've got a long time horizon, if you want to do it that way, it's in an uptrend. If you want to trade it a little bit more nimbly, then you can see that there are those ebbs and flows that you can kind of be looking at through the Moxie indicator on the hourly chart. So you can see here, there's your exit, there's your entry right there with the red arrow, green arrow. Yeah, Enduro, Happy New Year. I hope you guys will catch you on the flip side in 2022. We'll see what kind of year that's going to be. Oh, Jess, no, I didn't do that. Let's get into it. I do want to get, yeah. So I saw this and I was like, oh, I wonder if I should get into it because I did see that it was starting to work out, but I wanted to see if there was going to be a pullback, mostly because I'm going to show you race Ferrari and that there was a pullback at some point. So now that this thing's kind of up there, I was hoping the pullback would have been today because I am seeing a pullback on quite a few things, but some of these defensive ones, they're not. So this one, it was a little bit challenging. What I was looking for was a pretty clean setup because right here, I was looking for price to hold the hourly 50, which it was doing right there, and the Moxie indicator was above zero. And I had seen that this thing had bounced off the daily 50 perfectly. Now we got in and basically it immediately went down like that. I'm like, okay, what's going on with this thing? I want to make sure it's not, I didn't read this wrong, whatever. And so it just kept recovering. It recovered here and then just kept going up like that. So what I would like to see, if we can be patient and if it happens, I would like to see price probably get back down to the hourly 50 at some point. Now, maybe that'll happen soon. Maybe that'll happen later. So if you think this thing is going to be good, which it does look pretty good, then just jump on board and buy dips. So if you want back in on this, get back in, buy the dips when they occur. And if you look at race, what I was looking at right here. So you can see here, there's the Moxie price trigger. There's a pullback to the hourly 50. There's a pullback to the hourly 50. So at least in my world, in my experience, the hourly 50 does get tested at some point. And, so there's a move. And just like, what was it, CCB, as Imran brought up, that price almost always tests the 50 at some point. So if you're just patient, there will be opportunities to buy it at those things. Now, if you want to just get in, like what I said with DG, if you just want to get in at those points and understand that there will probably be pullbacks, then great. Just understand the context of the trade that you're trying to get. Understand that you might be buying it up here at the third ATR with a big gap between price and the hourly 50. And hey, if that works for you, then go for it. And then just understand that when it does pull back to a support area, you'll buy more, something to that extent. And I think Facebook is kind of doing the same thing. So I think Facebook is finally done doing its thing. It was very complicated and messy right in through here. We talked about it last week. I had a few subscribers asking about this. I said, kind of not sure. It's going to be all over the place. We were saying, is the 50 going to hold here? What's this thing going to do? We're not quite sure yet. And then it took a couple of big dips like that. As it turns out, those were trampoline moves. So price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above zero. And then finally, it looks like this thing's starting to get in gear. If you look at the past, you can see when it finally started going is the 8 got over the 21 and price really started to get over the daily 50. And you can see that there was some positive divergence in through there. Well, we've got that. Price down, Moxie indicator up. And if we look closely, what I'm kind of looking at is, price got over the daily 50, pulled back into the daily 50. The 8 was over the 21, and now we've got to move. So that looks pretty good. And this one I did decide to just get in because I think it's going to keep going and I want to buy the dips. So yes, I did buy up here and I did buy when there was a gap between price and the 8 EMA. And I did buy at the third ATR and there was a gap between price and the hourly 50, just like what I said that you could do just on DG. So just understand that price is probably going to come back down here a little bit or flag sideways, something to that extent. And it's probably going to meet, the daily 8, the hourly 50, something to there. And when it does that, you add more. And hopefully these things work out to the upside. But I think Facebook is probably done with doing its, hizzy fit on the way down. Now, if you guys are interested in an ETF, FNGU, I think is something interesting. It's been kind of choppy. It does have some crappy names in there like Baba and Baidu, which might be dragging it down a little bit. But this is a leveraged ETF of the FANG stocks that you guys might be interested in. The reason I'm also mentioning it is because of the 50, 200, 50 maneuver right here. And you can see we had price down, Moxie indicator up. So I'm looking for these kind of pullbacks. Like this is exactly what I'm looking for. There's the 50, 250. I'm looking for price to pull back. And if you look at that, what do we have on the daily chart? Here's the leg, here's the heel, here's the arch of the foot, there's the ball of the foot, looking for that elf toe. So Could be interesting. I think they're doing what I want them to do as far as pullbacks. And then, AMD. So AMRAM, let's see, perfectly head and lower to test the hourly 200 and hourly 50. In the meantime, yeah, so I agree. This is what I've been looking for. Last week, we got that big move up in the market that I think surprised a fair amount of people. I was surprised at the strength of it. But hey, you know what? Now that that's happened, what I'm looking at, there was a little bit of a gap here between price and the 8 EMA, and now price is pulling back. There was a gap here between price and the hourly 50, now price is pulling back. So if we can get something like this that pulls back into support and then holds and moves up like that, then we're looking pretty good. And you can see that NVIDIA did the same thing. Now look at that. That is a perfect 50-250 maneuver. 50, 250. I mean, that's perfect. And the whole time that this was technically an inverse trampoline move because price was over the 50, but the Moxie indicator was still below 0. So that was telling me like, most likely there's going to be a pullback that we should look for and see if we can pick up. Yeah, brighter side. So there you go. Hopefully that's what you want to see for NVIDIA. And I would say generally looking pretty good because there was a giant gap between price and the daily 50. And now it's back to the daily 50 and the Moxie indicator is above 0. So that should be either a bounce off the daily 50 or a trampoline move since price just barely went below the daily 50. Brighter side. So I do think that the NVIDIA is a buy here as long as price generally holds. Now, let me go over to the 15-minute time frame. Because ideally, if price is going to hold here, we should see price get back up and over the 15-minute 50, just like that, all right? The problem is that it could go lower and go just below the hourly 50. Not quite a trampoline move, but it could do that and then go back up. So assuming that this is going to work to the upside, then you can kind of start buying in here and then it'll move up. But if it doesn't work, then that's the problem because this could keep falling and failing below the hourly 50. I'm trying to think if I can find an example of that. I think it was WTI. Yeah, so right here, if you look like this, let me put my cursor kind of right there. We're looking right here with, say, NVIDIA, and it's at the daily 50. You're like, okay, is it going to hold? Well, this one did not hold the hourly 50. This one did not hold the hourly 50. So the question is, will this hold the hourly 50? And that's just the risk that you run with, say, NVIDIA or AMD. We want to see the price pull back, but we don't quite know yet if price is going to hold that support or not. Let me say for GDX as an example. I think GDX is working. Yeah, so look at GDX. You see how it came down here and it just went below the hourly 50. The Moxie indicator is above 0, and now you're back above the 15-minute 50. I'd say that's working. That's about as good as I can think it's going to get. So that looks pretty good. You can see here also price pulled back, went just below the hourly 50, but got back on top of the 15-minute 50 right there. So that's usually my confirmation is I want to see if price dips below, but I want to see it get back on top of those moving averages for support. So Loco no Joko, yeah, the SPY rip last 5 days seems fishy. Not feeling March 25th-ish or May 12th-ish at all. I'm not sure. Let me see what dates those are. Come on. Keyboard, don't fail me now. So let's see. March. I mean, which March? Are we talking 2021, I assume? March 25th. Geez, all the way back here, huh? March 25th. I don't know. I mean, it sure looks pretty similar. Because, right, getting a couple chop in through there, chop in through there, and it worked out. I don't know, man. It'd be hard-pressed to argue new highs. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I do see that there are a fair amount of, well, not a fair amount. We need to make sure we're looking in the right place. Because if you look at say, XLP is in an uptrend. How about XLV? XLV is an uptrend. The IWM is not in an uptrend. There are a lot of names and a lot of sectors that are not doing well and are not trading up. So we have to make sure that we're starting to look in the right place. And I've had to do a lot of readjustment in order to figure that out and say, okay, these are areas that I don't normally trade, but they are doing well, and I need to make sure I start capturing them. If you want leverage, you could look at Cure. I would wait until you find an opportunity to get in on something like this. But this is why I talk about a pullback to the hourly 50 right there, because that worked. So, look for that initial pullback. And you know what, Loco no Joko, be skeptical always, because you always need to like look out and say, okay, what's going to hurt me and what's going to damage my account. But you got to go with the flow too. Just find the right flow, find the right areas that are doing well, and then you can get that. Let's see. FNGG, I don't know that one. Large cap and F. Okay. Well, so JTD, leg, heel, arch of the foot, ball of the foot, looking for that elf toe. Here's the 50, 250 maneuver, and you'd need to just verify that price is going to hold that hourly 50 in order for price to go back up. So it could be interesting. Looks like it's got some leverage to it. Yeah, okay. And let's see. What else we talk about this? And then brighter side, let's see. Looking at NXTD. Yeah, maybe, we were just kind of chatting in the Moxie room. There were some other setups that kind of like this. I don't know if the market really has the appetite for this. I know I don't have the appetite for going after names like this. So if you do, make sure you get them right. Day trade them if you need to, but I will say, yes, there was a trampoline move right there. And then you can see price is pulling back to the hourly 50, and at least on the daily chart, you do have, get that up there, you do have divergences. So price down, Moxie indicator up, there's the Moxie price trigger, and you do have price pulling back down to the daily 50 on volume, with volume on the upside. So yes, this looks like a decent chart. Keep watching it. I'm just not going to say too much to it because the market seems to be wanting to go for more safety than for the high flying or risky stuff that we saw in 2020. So yeah, just kind of be careful out there with that. Yeah, AMAT also looks good. The semis, if you look at SOXX or SOXS, they finally did kind of a double bottom off the daily 50. The Moxie indicator was still above zero. You got a little bit of a divergence right there from a level right there. So yes, it's looking good. At this point, something like AMAT, I'd just be looking for a way in, looking for a flag or a pullback to some support. But yeah, generally speaking, AMAT, semis, all those things should be doing pretty well. And then let's see. As far as the cryptos, I don't know yet. They look like they're trying, but we don't know yet. And I would like to give them just a little bit more time because I don't want to be going and buying this if it doesn't hold. That's kind of my only issue, because if I show you with GBTC, which I know some people complain about, but I'm just going to do it. So if you look, we just had price bounce up into what I call the arch of the foot. And you can see that before it bounced up into the arch of the foot too, and it continued to sink lower for some time. That's possible. Now, because if we look at this on the hourly time frame and we look at that, you can see here that where did it fail? Right there, where price could not hold the hourly 50. And again, it could not hold the hourly 50. So this is the thing I'm talking about. NVIDIA, AMD, that's the risk. Now, I can't say for sure if it's going to happen or not happen. Is it going to hold or not hold? But that's the risk. If it doesn't hold, then it's going down. And that's what we're looking at here is we're right at it. Is it going to hold? We don't know. If it holds, then great. You've got an up move. Same with NVIDIA and AMD. If they hold, you got an up move. If they don't, well, then you're going to kind of deal with some more either downside or some more chop. So that's kind of where we're at looking at these things. And maybe we'll start seeing some clues this week. Otherwise, we should know more coming into the new year, because the traders, the big main traders from the institutions, the hedge funds, all those things, they should be back. Right now it's basically the amateur hour with all of us just kind of pushing price around because a lot of the real money is not getting moved during this holiday season. So that's kind of be looking at, and we'll jump back on it when I see you guys next Wednesday, which will be in 2022. So let's get back into it then, and we'll see what we can do. For anybody else who has any questions, profitpilot.com. Thanks again for checking in. Thanks for spending 2021 with me, and I'll see you guys next year.